when Earthfall destroyed many of Golarion's civilizations, when Golarion... Blah.
Citizens too.
That's
to be
true.
clear.
They killed a lot of citizens.
Hello, and welcome to the Tabletop Travel Guide, the podcast where we explore fictional worlds and civilizations right from the comfort of our own table. I'm Sam, and was the last RPG thing we did, which epilogue now?
We did.
I think we did Greg's epilogue?
We have
Okay.
not done Kali's.
That's right. Have we talked about that on here?
No.
Okay, great. So the last RPG thing that I did was participate in Tyler's campaign epilogue. We have finished the main storyline of Fist of the Ruby Phoenix, and we're now wrapping up each of our little characters' backstories. So we got to do Greg's, and it was mostly about Greg. My character was there and helped marginally.
Yeah, so with that one, they did, hey, I'm Tyler. And I think that was the last time I played too. It's been a little while since we've all played. For that one, Greg was basically fighting an outer god, but
Sick.
They were fighting through it with the power of friendship. So instead of doing like normal aids and stuff, it was everybody else was like incapacitated, but their spirits were like spirit helping Greg along.
Spirit bomb.
Yeah, and so he was like rolling his checks, but then they had the two little faces of who I allowed two people to help each.
We did get to
check.
argue for some cool stuff. What was the thing that... What spell did I use?
You used
that
like
I was super excited about?
Dispelling Fists.
Oh, that's right, because my Magus has Dispelling Spell Strike, so I asked Tyler if like my spirit help could be to like put the Dispelling magic into Greg's monk's hands.
Ooh, that's pretty cool.
And he like...
I put up a prismatic wall, and she did that, and then Andy, his help was using like elemental injunction or something that basically gave him a resistance to all the elements.
Oh, so you like dispelled and punched the wall.
We like
Yeah.
let him,
Yes.
Tyler let him like basically Superman through this wall with Dispelling Fists and resistance to stuff.
That's sweet.
That was great. That was a really nice example of Tyler not really focusing on what the specific rules were for those spells, but letting us have some really cool flavor.
Yeah.
Love it.
It was fun.
It's awesome. On Ryan. I didn't play Pathfinder recently. Well, I guess have I talked about we wrapped up Charles's campaign?
I can't remember if we talked about that or not.
I mean, we wrapped up Charles's campaign.
Yeah.
And the hilarious ending was like we took a raft back to our hometown, and he expected us to like go full out and like fight the guards defending the entrance to our little village, and we like stopped on the outskirts and like diplome/decepted our way up into melee range, and then just like minced these minced them.
Yeah, he was like, oh, okay. I didn't expect you guys to handle that from that close. And we're like, what did you expect us to do?
Yeah, he had like people like up in a tower with like bows, like ready to shoot at us the whole time. And it's like, no, we're just gonna like walk up and pretend we know them, and it worked.
To be fair, we technically did know them.
We did technically know them.
They were just undead now.
Yeah, and we saved the village. We did it.
Yay!
We saved the village. That was good.
Yeah, it was fun. It was good.
All right, so before we get into the episode today, reminder, you can support us on Patreon. There is a link in our show notes and also a page on our website, or you can search us at Tabletop Travel Guide Podcast on Patreon. Oh no, I realize that I now have to do the things we misspoke.
Do you want me to do that?
Do you want to
you want me to do it? I can try.
Do a terrible job.
We can't continue to misspeak. We got to fix it, Ryan.
So I don't remember how we originally misspoke these things. However, we mispronounced the city-state of Zali.
Zali.
That's how
Zali.
the phonetics here and my notes are. So it looks like we're saying
I was being very
Zali.
I was being very phonetic. So as you know, as we dive more into the Garoon area, which has a lot less
Latin. I think the correct would be like Latin.
Yeah, we have a lot less Latin. There are pronunciations that we are going to mess up. So after the last one, I did look into the ones where we did it, and I'm like, I feel like that's wrong. So I think we called it Mazali or something, but it's like Mzali, which is the city-state. And then you have Bamisala, which is the Gbemisola.
Yeah.
I didn't realize the G was silent. And then we have I can't even remember the
Tinashe.
Yeah, it was Tinashe.
Tinashe.
Yeah.
I said Tinashe because I thought that was the pop star.
I think that's probably the closest. I mean, either way, that's room for. And then it's Abyoyi.
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 Oh.
Yeah. I wrote down what the city state was. It's been too long, and I can't remember what the other things were. I think the rest of them were people.
Sure.
But yeah, so
we are going to learn and we're going to educate ourselves as we go.
I can barely speak English, guys.
Ryan will learn the most.
Yes.
All right. Well, so that leads us in. So today, Tyler is going to be taking us further into the Mwangi Expanse. Tyler.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Take it away. So I wanted to do some level setting. So we are going to be in the Mwangi Expanse, and the source I used was pretty much exclusively the Mwangi Expanse book, which is sitting on the chair next to me, and then a little bit of the wiki when there was some clarifications that I needed. So when we kind of decided how we were going to tackle the Mwangi Expanse, we started with, we did Shackles, and then we went into Vidrian, and we're like, how do we want to tackle this from here? We weren't sure whether we just wanted to dive right into each city-state or, do kind of a general history.
Yeah.
So I was kind of reading through and looking at the history across the ages. There were some cool things that might not come up if we did each individual city. So think of this episode as kind of a Mwangi Expanse sampler.
Okay.
We'll cover some big events that happened through the history. Yes.
A charcuterie board.
A charcuterie board.
No, it's back.
It's back.
It's back.
It's 64 episodes, and we're back to the charcuterie board. We had to do it for Avestan. We'll do it for Garund as well. So we'll cover some of the big events that happened through history that kind of help shape the Mwangi Expanse. Some of it will be things we have talked about before. Some of it will be things we will talk about again. Hopefully, this gets everyone hyped for what's to come.
Hype.
So let's dive in. The first age we are going to cover is Ryan's favorite age, the Age of Serpents.
Age of Serpents!
So there is no date range. It's just unknown time, like prehistory, no dates.
It's the Age of Serpents.
Yes. So
they count in hissing.
They count in hissing.
Years.
The Age of so many years. Okay.
What's it called in Harry Potter? Like speaking snake?
Parcel tongue?
Parcel tongue. Do they all speak parcel tongue in the Age of Serpents?
I don't know.
They probably have a cooler name for it.
Yeah, so the events during the Age of Serpents are kind of more about about Golarion as a whole, but lays some foundation for the Mwangi Expanse in future ages. So as we know, or we've probably talked about in the past, before humans showed up on Golarion, serpent folk had an empire that spanned multiple continents.
Cool.
They were just vibing, doing their thing.
They were like the dinosaurs. They covered most of the world and were doing their thing.
Yeah. So a few things kept them fully spreading everywhere, such as an ice age. Not great.
Similar to the dinosaurs.
Right? That slowed their expansion. Wow. As well as conflicts with the Iruxi, who are the lizard folk, and the Cyclops civilizations.
Cyclops.
Unlike the dinosaurs.
Sorry, we're in a mood, guys. It's fine. So in the late Age of Serpents, elves showed up on Golarion through the Ayudara from Severian.
Mm-hmm.
And the relevant part is that even though they set up their main nation of Keonan in Avestan, many elves set out to explore the world and built further Ayudara around Golarion, including what will be the Mwangi Expanse.
Cool.
Fabulous.
So that leads us to the Age of Legend. Like I said, nothing really specific, but there will be some foundations.
Sure.
So it was during the Age of Legend, which is the unknown time, to minus 5293. So a lot of millennia.
Yeah.
It was during the Age of Legend that the Elven civilization reached its peak, and it was during that age that Elven explorers reached the Mwangi Expanse and founded the nation of Mualaje.
Mualaje?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mualaje elves that spanned across the majority of the jungle. So we'll talk a little bit more, but the Mwangi are just kind of the like standard elf ethnicity that lives in the Mwangi.
Okay.
Over the centuries, there would be many expansionist human cultures that would also try to show up and fight the elves, usually push back. This was the time of the Thessalonians and Atlanti as well. Even though most humans got pushed back by the elves, there were some smaller peaceful human settlements that would crop up and had little issue. Basically, if you were here for peace, the elves were like, cool, friend, it's cool. But since most of the people were getting pushed back, there was a reputation of the Mwangi jungle being dangerous to most of humanity.
Checks out.
Yeah, which is fair. So, like I said, the Aslant nation rises up during this age, and they, as they're, the original explorers.
Sure.
The original human explorers.
Yep.
As they expanded eastward, they clashed with the serpent folk empire that was still in the Mwangi. So elves kind of start creating, but there are still a good amount of serpent folk in the Mwangi at this time.
Yep.
They're hanging on.
So ultimately, the Aslanti drove the serpent folk underground into the Darklands.
Great.
And then kind of chased them down there.
Oh.
The serpent folk had their last stand at the underground city of Ilmuria, which is the sanctum of their demigod Yudursius.
It's a good name.
We've talked about him before, somewhere.
That sounds familiar. Maybe when we talk about Darklands? I don't know.
Maybe.
Possibly.
Chasing these serpent folk down, the Aslanti champion Savith campaigned from western Avestan all the way to the Expanse to put an end to the war, which he basically did by beheading Yudursius himself.
Oh.
Yeah. Showed up, just beheaded him, and was like, you're done.
Okie dokie.
Unfortunately for her, he got a couple of good hits in, so she succumbed to the venom soon after, and her followers entombed her in the remote outpost they then called Saveth Yi. And then weirdly, the Aslanti just peaced out. So, they didn't try to hold any of the areas they pushed the serpent folk out of. They just left.
So it was like a crusade against the serpent folk just for the crusade?
There's precedent for that in history.
I don't know. It felt weird because, there wasn't, as far as I could tell, any inciting incident of what the serpent folk did to the Aslanti. It's not like they just ran them down.
I mean, you could use, the Roman response to the Germanic peoples as an example. They didn't occupy that area. They just, marched around for a few years and moderately genocided people.
I mean,
that's true.
Yeah. So, so with the serpent folk having retreated to the Darklands and the Aslanti having left for reasons, the Cyclops civilization of Golgon, which we have talked about, rose to fill that power vacuum. If you remember, this is the civilization that the Chelish people saw all the ruins of, the horrifying cannibalism and sacrifices depicted on their walls, and were like, no, that's terrifying. But turns out the Cyclops weren't always that horrifying. They actually grew from smaller nature-venerating settlements to a sun and moon worshipping empire that spanned much of what is now the Shackles, the Soddenlands, and other parts of the Mwangi. And then they originally clashed with some of the remnants of the Circle folk. The
Circle folk.
The Circle folk. They clashed with some of the remnants of the Serpent folk and actually adopted some of their religious rites and sacrificial practices, hoping to kind of gain advantage against them.
Oh boy!
If you can't beat them, steal their rights and try to beat them with that.
Sure.
So they ended up driving the Serpent folk farther into the Darklands and consolidated their territories. So it was then that the Golgani continued these adopted religious practices, which kind of led to a competition between the city-states for resources, because part of that was sacrifices. So they're competing for the best quality sacrifices to sacrifice.
Cool.
Yeah. So it was during this competitive time that everybody started seeking after sacrificial candidates that were pleasing to some of the hot new gods in town of the Dark Tapestry.
Ooh. The outer gods.
Which, if you know, those are the Cthulhu Lovecraftian gods.
Great.
Which are not the most benevolent gods.
Sure.
At best, they are ambivalent, and at worst, they are very twisted.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
So it doesn't go into much detail about their worship practices, but I would assume this is where their cannibalism and sacrifice got dark.
Paizo Golgani supplement when?
Yeah. When are you going to talk about this? Paizo. That I assume that went down a super dark spiral until about Earthfall hit.
Great.
And then once Earthfall hit, it destroyed most of the cities and left the cut-off settlements to wither, and only leaving behind those cursed ruins that would then be found.
Great.
Yeah. So this kind of brings us up to the Age of Darkness. It's at the end of the Age of Darkness in minus 5293, where the Great Equalizer, Earthfall,
Sure.
devastated the surface of Golarion, wiping out the Aslanti, the Thessalonians, as well as the Golgani empires.
The Sassalonians.
Wipe
The
the slate
Sassalonians.
clean.
Yes, wiped everything clean. In the Mwangi Expanse, amidst all this destruction, awakened an arboreal Damari Diji, who witnessed all this chaos. Arboreals are tree creatures.
I was going to say, is this
They're
like
kinda
a tree ant?
Yeah, they're kind of like Ents.
So is that a proper name or is that a
Proper name Damari Diji,
okay?
the ancestry of arboreal. And it was during this time, like at the post-chaos, that he's exploring around the surroundings and found something called the Nemesis Well.
Oh, that sounds good.
Not a good name.
Yeah, which was a path between worlds, and he vowed to protect the region from the entities who would use it to wreak havoc on Golarion.
Okay, that's very kind.
Yeah. Good dude. So around the same time, a group of Zenge pastoralists had to leave their homeland due to severe drought and traveled into the jungle.
What's a pastoralist by this definition?
A pastoralist are people who are like raising livestock and like kind of nomadic.
Pasture.
Nomadic.
Oh,
drivers.
Okay.
Yep. And so the Zenge, might be pronouncing that right, are the kind of most prolific human ethnicity in the Mwangi.
Okay.
And they are noted by, they tend to have like sister settlements where you'll have a nomadic settlement in the savannah and then a like more permanent city in the jungle.
Cool.
So that's kind of what they're known for. So this specific group was led by a pair of sisters, the druid Kamar and the healer Jahar.
Kamar and Jahar.
And one day Kamar, while she was communing with the landscape, encountered the ancient mind of Damari Diji and proposed a pact. Her people would help him hide and guard the Nemesis Well if he allowed the group to settle in his forest.
Okay.
They then made the town of Obisu and became really good at creating medications and alchemical compounds. Osibu? Yes.
Osibu.
Yes. So I want to go down a rabbit hole, just a smidge, of the Nemesis Well in Osibu, which is near the kind of southwestern corner of the Mwangi. So it's literally a well that is 30 feet across with an unknown
That's
depth.
big.
Yeah. So I kind of think of it as like the well in 300 that King Leonidas kicks the guy into.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I picture. Nothing that goes down the well ever comes back.
Cool.
And once every 5 years, the well begins to whisper. And the following day, all the people in town lock their doors and windows and try not to sleep, because those that do sleep have bad dreams and wake up feeling that a hungry creature is down trapped in the well.
Ooh.
Yeah. So legend has it that it's a portal directly to Rovagug's prison, but no one really knows.
Cool.
So that's the Nemesis Well.
Great.
Moving on. Other things that happened during the Age of Darkness. The elves. So let's talk about the Mwalije again. They back. So we know most of the elves retreated to Sovirian prior to Earthfall, but the Mwalije decided to stay and defend their lands against the darkness. They faced this evil, which we've talked about, in the form of Dahak, who is the evil god of dragons, who snuck through an Ayudara in the ring of Alcetta's ring.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then the clans that would end up becoming the Akuje, which we talked way back at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They sacrificed their greatest warriors to empower their weapons so that they could harm Dahak and imprison him within the Ayudara portal network between the planes. The Akuje clans then kind of gathered around the portals and became the kind of defenders of the Ayudara.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So other clans of the Mwalije in this, meanwhile, traveled northeast and rediscovered the white city of Nagisa. So this city was an obvious elven architected city, but the origins of it were lost to time. So, and then over that time, they'd attracted demonic influences somehow.
Cool.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So the clans at this point disagreed on kind of how to deal with these demonic influence. Some chose to remain near Nagisa, studying the ruins and attempting to drive out the demons. Eventually, these clans became the Alage. So you have the Akuje and the Alage.
Okay.
And then others feared becoming corrupted and continued to the shores of Lake Akota, which is like kind of in the middle of the Mwangi Expanse, kind of like north middle area, where they basically dwelled in peace until the ascension of the first Gorilla King,
Cool.
which we'll get to. These clans called themselves the Kalage and kind of set about resisting internal corruption.
Okay. So the elves are generally dispersed to fight things that they think are important.
Yeah, they kind of split up and while all, I'm not sure if they are counted as still the Mwalaje.
Yeah.
But they, kind of split up and did their own important tasks.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So you can't talk about elves without talking about the dwarves.
Mm-hmm.
So while the elves were doing their things, you also had several groups of dwarves who, sometime after the quest for the sky, they traveled south to establish citadels beyond Avestan. One group would build the Dungan Hold in what is now Alkenstar in the east.
Cool.
And then another group formed an alliance with cloud dragons of the Turwa uplands to the west, and the people who would eventually become the Mbeke dwarves founded Cloudspire.
Cool.
Which was a different sky citadel.
Nice.
So yeah, that kind of covers the big hits of the Age of Darkness. So that brings us up to the year minus 4200.
Whew.
Yeah, so we are in the Age of Anguish.
Sounds like a really lovely age to be in.
Sure.
Yes. It took a while for the ages to get like cool again after serpents.
Yes.
They hit the peak and then went down from there.
Yes, totally agree.
When Earthfall destroyed many of Golarion's civilizations, when Golarion
Citizens too.
That's
to be
true.
clear.
They killed a lot of citizens.
Everybody dead.
Everybody dead. So when Earthfall destroyed many of the oldest civilizations, with that, a lot of knowledge died with the civilizations.
Yes.
So all across the world, people struggled to reinvent the things they had before. And in the Mwangi Expanse, this led to the rise of the country's most famous heroes, Old Mage Chatembe and his 10 magic warriors.
Okay.
I like the name.
Right? So we might go into more detail about them another time, but his main achievement was basically reintroducing magic and spellcasting to a world that had all but forgotten what it was.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Yeah, so he spent most of his time kind of teaching everything he knew about spellcasting to anybody who would listen.
Nice. Okay.
His goal was to, this knowledge should be shared and it should be passed down. This shouldn't be held or kept. And he passed this down to his 10 magic warriors. And they each had their own focus and interests, but they all took apprentices as well and taught them everything they knew to kind of spread the good around the world.
Nice. So they kind of like made the family tree of magic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's some really cool like magic schools present day in the Mwangi, right?
Yeah. So we'll talk about it.
Fine.
We're actually getting there like right now. So.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah. So at some point, one of the followers of the magic warrior named Elephant, so magic warrior Elephant, his follower named Jade Feather realized that a lot of the knowledge was being passed around but not preserved. So they would solve one problem and then move on to the next without documenting anything. They were bad coders. They wouldn't document their changes. She suggested that the apprentices choose a place to meet regularly to exchange knowledge, to which Elephant agreed and encouraged all of her followers to meet with her friend Verdant Spider in Natambu, which is kind of due east of the Shackles and west of the Expanse.
Okay.
On the west side of the Expanse. And soon the meetings grew to become an annual event. And then all of the other magic warriors sent their people there. They wanted to get in on it. And then even those beyond the 10 magic warriors began flocking to Natambu, seeking teachers of all sorts of topics. Elephant and Verdant Spider just asked that anybody who wanted to join in these events help the villagers with their work and continue to teach each other all that they know.
Okay.
Love it.
Yeah, they didn't want any knowledge to be used against people.
Sure.
Knowledge was for all and everybody could learn it. And as everyone became more communal, they were given the nicknames the Magambia.
Yes.
Nice.
Which is the magic school that we now know today. And then over the course of the years, it grew and became more and more
nice.
formal.
Nice.
But yeah, there's a whole adventure path.
I know. We
I
haven't
know.
done that one yet, but I think it'd be
Strength
really
of
cool.
Thousands. It would be. It's a 6-book.
I know.
hard.
It's a big
Which
commitment.
It's a big one.
makes me nervous because it's 6 and
Yeah.
I feel like we struggle with
We'll
6
just
book adventures.
We'll just ignore book 5.
Right.
Book 5's
We've learned
never,
anything. Just-
never the one we want.
So we have kind of hit the big events that happen in the Age of Anguish.
Okay.
And so we now move to the Age of Destiny.
Destiny.
Feels like our ages are on the upswing.
Yeah, we're back on the upswing. So the Age of Destiny is from minus 3470 to minus 632 AR.
It's just a short jaunt.
A short jaunt of a couple thousand years, could be more. So around this time, new empires started to rise. Black Heron, one of the 10 magic warriors, or a successor who was wearing his mask, it is unsure,
Sure.
united southern Garundi nomads to fight against the cults of Rovagug. They started by using air magic to attack from the trees, but they soon developed flying platforms that were nearly invulnerable to the cult's attacks.
They developed air power?
Yeah, they
Dang.
basically had like flying platforms,
Dang.
killing it. And they were able to suppress Rovagug's cults. And during this time of peace, they formed the Shori Empire, which continued to develop its flying tech, and they even lifted cities up in the air.
Oh, dang.
Huh.
So now they had flying cities just chilling around. And they, funny enough, kept their nomadic tendencies just with the flying cities this time.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
So-
I would too, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they flew their cities around and offered healing, knowledge, and news of other lands to all the cities they passed by. So they'd kind of just like circle around the
That's cool.
Mwangi and trade with the cities they passed. Unfortunately, not all was perfect in their tech. It relied heavily on summoned beings, which started out as elementals, but eventually led to daemons and creatures of the Dark Tapestry.
Man,
Dun,
the Dark
dun,
Tapestry's
dun.
getting a good
Right?
run here.
As the technology advanced. And we know how that works out. So because of, over time, because of a combination of their arrogance, they were thinking, we're high and mighty literally, some alienation and general lack of maintenance on their flying cities.
Gotta do that.
They
preventative maintenance.
eventually fell from attacks from several fronts, be it Rovagug's cults, disease, or other tragedy. It had a good run, and it lasted almost 2,000 years. But the good thing is that even after the Shori Empire fell, their teachings of sharing knowledge still spread among the cities they visited, which continued to have their trade networks between themselves, even though the flying cities no longer visited.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So, in the absence of the traveling cities, some Zenge governments began to fill that power vacuum. We talked about that, reminder. So, yeah, they have their kind of cities, their sister cities. So, they were building up their permanent towns with their savannah tribes. The cool thing is that the permanent locations are usually patriarchal, and the savannah tribes are more nomadic and matriarchal.
Interesting.
So, kind of a cool, interesting,
Nice balance.
yeah, and they would trade. They would connect a couple times a year, and one of the cool things they do is they. It sounded weird, but it's like they would trade adolescence. So, like, if you didn't, if you didn't want your kind of like gender roles of the tribe you were born in, you can move to the other one.
So if you were like, I don't want to live in the city, I want to roam,
Yeah,
you could go
yeah,
Okay,
pop
you
you
can
can do
over
vice
here.
versa. And they kind of encourage like you should be able to do what you want.
You can do your study abroad.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
So one of the most famous of these cities, Zatremba.
Zatremba.
It's
Okay.
an X, so I assume that's Zatremba. Started out as a religious center, and it had Pharasman priests that were considered so wise and powerful that people from all over came to consult and receive aid
Cool.
Nice.
and bring it was almost kind of like pilgrimages and bring religious tokens and whatnot. So eventually, the city became so spiritually oriented that many merchants and craftspeople moved to the sister tribe in the savannah, Rastal, hoping to profit from the pilgrims.
Oh,
Eh.
And Rastal themselves even went so far as to abandon their nomadic roots and expand the camp into a permanent market, followed by a city of the same name. So you now had sister cities, not a nomadic tribe.
Mm-hmm.
The matriarch took residence in a Tower of Bone, and during this time of peace, Rastal expanded as a trade city rapidly.
the Bone Tower.
The Bone Tower.
I mean, that's kind of cool. I mean, it's Pharasma, so that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Zatremba objected to this. They did not like another city being in its area and tried to restrict trade routes from other places to Rastal. Rastal accused Zatremba's rulership of using religious dogma to keep its power, and the cycle continued until it escalated into a full-blown conflict between the cities.
So these were sister cities, and now they are
Enemies.
enemy
Yes.
cities.
They are
Bummer.
estranged family cities.
Ah, yes.
So Zatremba, in this conflict, called upon its ancestors and Pharasma, and
Okay.
as a counter, Rastal called upon demon lords.
You see,
Oh,
buddy.
that's a tactic.
Yeah. These demon lords did respond by
they
sending
did.
demons all through Zatremba, destroying it. And then the demons went over to Rastal and destroyed them as well.
Yep. There you go.
And the summoning tore a veil in the plains that took centuries for the Akuje and the Magambia to close.
A little mini world wound.
Yes.
Cool.
Well, geez, just get along, everybody.
Right? So, moral of the story, be friends with your sister tribe.
Sure.
I don't know. Yeah, so a bit of a rough ending there. And the last kind of big thing to happen during the Age of Destiny is further south from here, a line of warrior kings and queens founded the city of Umzali.
Mzali.
So they were fiercely proud of their martial prowess and gained dominion by force over the surrounding region. They were all about conquering. They were like baby exploring. Yeah. They were also known for mummifying their dead and displaying them prominently in their royal line.
Sure.
Okay.
Once the amount of places around them to conquer fell, once they kind of conquered everything, they did not do what most Avistani did and go exploring. Instead, they changed all of their military orders into teams of gladiators and basically turned the whole thing into kind of a weird Hunger Games type competition where these teams of gladiators would come and compete and die to fight for food and resources to bring back to the different parts of the city.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's weird. Eventually, a lot of people did not like this, so
Yes.
a network of regional governors and local religious leaders formed an alliance called the Council of Mwangi, and they coordinated an uprising that overthrew Mzali's rulers.
Okay.
Yeah, they were like, no, this is dumb.
This is not where we want to go with society. Thank you.
Yes, they also searched out and destroyed all of the royal tombs to basically kind of stamp out the royal line completely. However, they missed one.
They always do.
Bum, bum, bum. Walkenna,
Uh-oh.
Yes.
a young prince of the royal line, had died of an illness a few decades prior and had been entombed hastily in a sepulcher, right? That's how you say that. Intended for a famous gladiator rather than the normal royal tomb.
Dun, dun, dun.
So the rebels missed it since it wasn't a royal tomb. So, yeah, maybe that will be important later.
0 consequences in the future.
Who could say?
Hmm.
So that brings us to the Age of Enthronement, or AR1, after Eridan became a god.
I haven't read these part of the notes. Please let Eridan just not be here.
So he
Surely he can be inconsequential in one part of the world.
One part. Give me one part of the world.
So he does not show up here as a deity. His deityness has really not much impact here.
Okay.
A few decades after the arrival of Eridan, the demon lord Angajin,
Sure.
he found a way to project his power into the material plane, or now the universe. In the cliffs above the southern coast of Lake Akota, near where the Kalajay are, he shaped a jagged stone altar and waited.
For anything in particular?
So he was hanging out, waiting for his next kind of puppet to show up.
Cool.
And no one knows who the first hapless mortal was to touch the altar of Angajin. But when they did, they were struck dead and forcibly reincarnated into the first Gorilla King.
Great.
Oh, no.
Yep. So
It's like a Tomb Raider situation gone wrong.
yeah. So a little background on there. The Gorilla King is the kind of leader of a kind of cult. They're kind of big into demons. And if you kill the Gorilla King, generally you will just be struck down and reincarnated as the Gorilla King by touching the altar.
Cool.
So there have been a lot of Gorilla King successors, and they slowly built Usaro, which is that area, into a bloody shrine to the Demon Lord. And then eventually they decided they wanted to start expanding their territory, and also they needed more sacrifices.
Of course.
They always do.
So while they were expanding, they ran into some orcs.
Orcs.
So the Matangi orcs, to be exact, who at the time were mostly insulated after escaping from the dwarves' quest for the sky and managing to eke out a rough existence in the Mwangi Expanse.
Okay.
They're, reminder, they used to be in the Darklands. They got pushed up, literally up by the dwarves who were reaching the sky, and then a lot of fights happened. So the Matangi orcs were a group of orcs who kind of made it to the Mwangi by raft, and then just kind of tried to survive the jungle and had been going from there. So once they encountered the orcs, the Ungajin followers killed some of them, and then I'm not sure if these are like undead. I didn't really understand the mechanics of this, but they got corrupted into Charuka, which are kind of like evil monkey creatures.
Ooh.
So the Matangi, once they saw that their fallen brethren were being transformed into these evil creatures and learned of all the other horrific tortures and sacrifices, they united to face the threat.
Yeah.
So this group of like rough, straggling orcs decided they're taking this shit down. So they transformed one of their small settlements, Matakali, which was once a site for marriage negotiations and social rituals, into a walled city where they trained to hunt demons.
Wow, there's a transition.
Love it.
Yeah. So over the centuries, the Matakali hunters secured their homeland further into the 9 walls that protect the Matangi orcs from the Sodlands and from the cultists. And they are renowned demon hunters. Like,
sweet.
So we'll get more into them at some point because they are freaking legit. But where orcs are kind of feared in other places, anytime an orc shows up in the Mwangi, everyone is like hyped because they are here.
The demon hunters.
Yeah, they're the demon hunters.
That's
they
sweet.
are highly respected.
That's awesome.
Which is awesome. I love them. Of course, it wouldn't be a story without someone attempting to explore all over the area with some mixed results. As we spoke about before, Taldor's 6th Army of Exploration sought to claim territory in the Mwangi Expanse and was massacred by the Gorilla King.
Hey.
So Gorilla King kind of sucks, but you know what? So does Taldor sometimes. And the Gorilla King also took their siege engine, the Worldbreaker. So that's cool.
Great.
Other groups were more successful, such as the Aspis Consortium. They established a foothold in Blood Cove, which was in the Shackles, and it's a port. And they kind of expanded from there. The Akuje have tried to kind of push back against their...
The consortium.
Yeah. They're taking artifacts, they're selling them. We talked about that. The Akuje have tried to push back, but the allure of treasure is a strong one, and more adventurers show up each year.
Sure.
So farther north from there, trouble was brewing in Cloudspire with the Mbeke dwarves. So King Nkobe, I assume, the last of the old ruling house of the dwarves, he lost his only son to illness. And he then spiraled into paranoia and despair and ordered the execution of the royal doctors. And then the Fellowship of Surgeons. And then the local barbers and the medicine women. Which is not great for public health.
Sure.
Buddy.
Yeah. So the citizens rebelled, which began the War of Split Hearts. Yep. After several bloody years, most of that aristocracy was dead, and the few survivors kind of decided they needed to put an end to the battles and hammered out a constitutional monarchy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so...
That's a plus.
All's well that ends well.
Great.
Okie dokie.
So yeah, at this point we are brought to the final age with friend of the pod Eridan's death.
There he is. So
The
he really
Age of
didn't have much
Lostone.
influence. Okay.
He
So
did
that's
not.
good.
Yeah.
He wasn't even hanging out down here. So.
Yeah, he was not bothering the Mwangi too much.
Good.
So from 4606, never forget, to the present, there were several impacts to the Mwangi Expanse. if not directly, and kind of directly. The one of the largest was the Eye of Bendigo.
Sure.
And where that infinite hurricane showed up.
Very cool.
And it flooded the coast and ruined a bunch of shipping routes.
Mm-hmm.
One of the kingdoms on that coast was Lirgen, whose ruling class, the Sayak Brethren, were widely known for the astrological expertise and being able to see into the future. Ironically, they did not predict neither Eridan's death nor the Eye of Bendigo showing up.
Well,
so
sometimes you miss, but
the kingdom got destroyed
well,
by the hurricane.
Womp womp.
Yeah, partially by the hurricane and also partially because
They all said, shouldn't you have seen that
your
coming?
reputation kind of gets destroyed when you don't see
Yeah.
the thing destroying your kingdom. So yeah, I thought that was a little fun fact. We also talked about in previous episodes, but it's around this time that Sargava cuts a deal with the Shackles pirates to avoid the wrath of Cheliax.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
The free captains unite under the Hurricane King.
Still such a good name.
I know, still great. And eventually Sargava collapses in the fires of a revolution and is reborn as Vidrian.
Mm-hmm.
So the final thing that happens is that the Matangi orcs, along with the Kalajay, stepped up their campaign against the demons of Usara
Mm-hmm.
and the Gorilla King, and actually managed to kill the Gorilla King.
Mm.
But rather than becoming the next Gorilla King, they stole the altar and hid it away.
Huh.
Oh, nice.
So that way no one else could be
Gorilla
struck down and
Kingified?
be, Gorilla Kingified.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's a good tactic.
Right. So good job, elves and orcs, doing your thing. And so that kind of brings us through the Mwangi Expanse through the ages.
Woo.
It was a lot.
It's a lot.
So much history.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot, but we're definitely going to dive into more of this as we go around. But reading through this and talking about it, I'm kind of pumped because there's a lot of cool
This is sweet.
stories.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Yeah. So hopefully all of you are also hyped. And we'll be right back with talk about a character who might be in the Mwangi.
And we're back with more Mwangi related content. Ryan is going to kick us off with a little campaign talk. Ryan, what have you come up with?
Yeah, we knew this was going to be the charcuterie board episode. There's a little bit of potpourri, so we didn't really commit super hard, and I kind of wanted to wait to hear just stuff about Mwangi.
Yeah.
And part of it's probably recency bias, but as we were talking through toward the end, I kind of had the idea of like a quasi-evil campaign, or like maybe like maybe a neutrally campaign.
After all this goodness we talked about.
Well,
Bring
I think
evil into
it
here.
has the
You talked
potential
through
to
a
shift.
lot of-
There's a lot of stuff.
Ages that are bad.
I know.
So I think it could be a really, really interesting campaign if you were like on a job from the Epsis Consortium
Ooh.
to find the altar for the Gorilla King.
Ooh.
And it'd be very like, I would steal every trope from like Indiana Jones movies and stuff of like, oh, you're off to find this adventure. And you could play as people from Avestan. You could play as Mwangi natives. But I would envision it like being very not descriptive in the beginning of like, oh, well, I need you to go to this place and just report back.
Ooh.
And then like, oh, well, if, now that you've reported back, I want you to go deeper into this tomb. Now that you've gone deeper in this tomb, I want you to touch the thing. Like I want you to find the thing and be very like intentionally evasive as the sponsor of this expedition. Maybe have like a wonderfully evil British man who's like with you the whole time.
Gerhard Pendergrast.
See, I would want that person to be a front, and I would want the real person behind it to be a worshiper of the demon lord.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, and they'd been infiltrating the consortium or something. Oh, it could even be Pathfinders, right? Like you could literally run this as a Pathfinder thing of like, we're going looking for an artifact, and they've like somehow infiltrated the society to get like the Oceans team they need because they already know where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be hilarious if you like it was an evil campaign that you thought you were the good guys the whole time. Like, oh yeah, we're getting this for history. This is a good thing. And like you fight the Akuje elves who are like, no, you guys can't have this. And we're like, you were just trying to keep us from preserving history.
Yeah, you would definitely need to like figure out a way for that to be intentionally conflict driven. Like,
yeah,
because I'm sure the Akuje are like, hey, Don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't do that. That's a bad idea.
That's not smart.
Well, I think if your party was not inherently evil, you couldn't reveal to it immediately like what they were actually
Sure.
after.
But even like that dichotomy of the Akuje versus like what orcs are in Avestan of like a tribe of orcs, savages.
Yeah.
We should defend ourselves.
Yeah, like
you could lean in almost like
you almost lean into the stupid like colonist.
yeah. Or like if you were a local Mwangi native, you'd be like, no, the Akuje are great. Why are we fighting? Why are we fighting the Akuje? They're awesome.
Why are we fighting? The Montanji orcs are here. Like they're the heroes. What are you doing?
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and then there's definitely a really cool moment of like, it's almost like it's like which Indiana Jones where they're like
the first one, the Ark of the Covenant.
No, not the Ark of the Covenant has its own thing too, but the
Holy Grails.
Holy Grails, yes. Yeah. I don't know why.
I was Crusade. Like, I'm not sure what Ryan is doing. He's just holding up his hands.
This video, help! Yeah, is that the Last Crusade?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like when the Nazi like walks up and is like, I wonder which Grail is the correct Grail. Like you could have a really cool moment where either like it's almost a false one where like the villain gets their comeuppance, or you could be like, yeah, and then they like walk up and they touch the throne and like, boom, middle of campaign end, the Gorilla King's in front of you and he's like, I will spare your lives for allowing me to become the Gorilla King.
Yeah, honestly, or this could be a good campaign. This would also be just a cool evil campaign. Like
or
where,
like who gets to touch
you
it
are
first?
Just all evil and like but you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Like you are all evil and you think like this is gonna give you a lot of power.
Yeah, you might not want to be if you knew, you probably wouldn't want it because the Gorilla King is possessed.
Yeah, the Gorilla King is
its own entity basically.
Yeah,
you die.
It's like you are
not you anymore.
You are not you. So like yeah, you might think like they tell you like this gives you unlimited power, you can do whatever. And then you almost have like would be cool is like at the end you have the party who's like we are fighting over who gets to
the ultimate power,
and then you're the biggest loser. Like
yeah.
That would actually be kind of cool. I think evil, it's all greedy and then like you don't tell them at the end like the end is actually the worst outcome it could be.
Yeah. I like that.
And then the next campaign is all your players are like, okay, now we got to go kill the Gorilla King.
Or contain the Gorilla King.
Round 2.
Even better would be if you were crazy and had multiple groups in the same location. Ooh. You could have one party like 2 or 3 sessions behind, like tracking the evil party. That would be your good party. Like, oh, I think they were here and like they slaughtered a bunch of orcs, like good orcs. Like, oh my gosh, I feel horrible. And like, and then the reveal would be pretty great of like, okay, one of them is the Gorilla King now.
No, the best reveal is 2 evil campaigns. Both are told the same story. One is 3 sessions behind.
Oof.
And then just like, the first party touches the altar thinking that'll give them the limited power. The second party thinks killing the Gorilla King will give them the limited power. It's the same outcome both campaigns.
Yikes.
It's equally awful both times. It's equally
awful. Yeah.
See, this could work.
I like it.
This could work.
Nice.
I like that.
I didn't make a character for this at all, but
cool. No, I mean, I think so the things that I want to explore with characters then, and obviously if we go more evil, this makes it just easier. I really want to like look at like the Dark Tapestry deities and I really want to like pull one of those in to like influence a character because I think those would be fun dynamics to play with, especially if you're going for a campaign where you do not need to be good. I would pull in those things.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have like, this is very relevant because it was Greg's quote unquote benefactor, but Nyarlathotep took me like the whole campaign to actually sit down and be like, how the hell do you pronounce his name?
Yeah.
So it, otherwise known as the Crawling Chaos, is like the outer god that mostly interacts with, or that most interacts with humans and basically like causes chaos for the sake of the outer gods. So that'd be kind of cool. Like, a cleric of Nyarlathotep.
Just like rolling in, causing chaos.
This is probably one of your only times you could play a cultist of Rovagug.
Ooh. Like
straight up. Like they might even know it. Like, I'm here for total chaos. I am okay touching the throne, dying, and becoming the Gorilla King, because like that's ultimate chaos.
That would actually be awesome to have one, because we talked about having like we've talked about campaigns in the past where you have a character that like is working against the party.
Yeah.
But having either like a Rovagug or an Outer God or something, have somebody who knows what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like influencing the party, and like you don't have
That's
to
the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be pretty
I think
cool.
you just have to like play chaos from an intelligence perspective,
Yeah.
not
Oh, yeah.
chaos
You can't just,
from a madness perspective, because then that just wrecks things and would be really difficult.
And it like you wouldn't want to bring like the garbled crazy person in the corner, right? Like you'd want someone who has
or
a
the
head on
person
them.
who's like, I just want to watch everything burn all the time. Like,
well, you can like you can have a character that's hyping up that power the whole time.
Yeah.
That knows what's gonna happen. It's like telling everybody like, this will change your life, like deity level. Like you're basically just like hyping everybody up to eventually just die.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's some really cool stuff to play with characters so the Dark Tapestry, but then just like the other Mwangi deities. We'll have to have a whole separate episode on the Mwangi deities.
There was a request that you do another deity episode.
We can do it.
So.
Like even the
I'm sold.
Man, the Gorilla King is spec'd, I assume, right?
I don't know.
Maybe. But like I want to play with those mechanics. Like I think that would be
might not
fun. I want to play with all the different like magic mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's some cool stuff with obviously the magic schools. Like you can build out characters with some different magical stuff going on.
Okay, he's not spec'd. He or she, I guess it could be a Gorilla Queen. But that would even be like such a fun moment of like, all right, give me your character sheet. All right, you're the Gorilla King now. Like hand them the Gorilla King character sheet.
That'd be super cool. Nice.
So we could play crazy, but like fun crazy.
Yeah. So I'm excited as we like move farther into the Mwangi, we can, obviously come up with more specific campaigns and more specific characters as we hit more specific places. But overall, I think there's some just really fun different flavors to play with.
Yeah.
In the Mwangi.
Super pumped.
So.
Nice.
Tyler, do you want to do a ranking?
No.
Okay.
No, I think it's
too broad.
Too broad.
Too
far.
broad.
Yeah.
We'll have to, and this was more of a history anyway. So like we ranking the ages, which one do we think was the best one for the Mwangi Expanse?
Serpents.
It's always serpents.
It's always serpents.
All right. So that is where we will conclude today with our general overview of how we got to present day Mwangi, and then we will continue to explore more specific places and peoples and learn more as we go. So just as we close out, reminder, we have a Patreon, link in the show notes or on our website, or search us on Tabletop Travel Guide Podcast. Thank you to everyone for moving with us into a fun new territory. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a rating or review us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Tell your friends. Get them into lore so that, we have everybody who wants high intelligence scores learning about all of the things that they can do in the world of Golarion.
Yeah.
And until next time, safe travels.